Today we're going to be talking about wealth gaps. What exactly is a wealth gap? So in the United States, it is an unequal distribution of assets among residents of the United States. And if you want to shorten that down to make it a little easier, it's basically the unequal pay between men, women, and different colored races. Wealth inequality more heavily applies to majority of black men and women, Hispanic men and women, and also white women. And Mitchell Hartman, who is an entrepreneur, works at the entrepreneurship desk, said that back in 1979, the top 10% of earners took home about a third of their nation's income. By the late 2000s, half of that income was flowing into their paychecks. Another way to look at it is as the economy grew fully, 80% of the increases in our economy went up to the top 1%. So when exactly did the wage gap start? Wage gap started back in World War II when all of the men were enlisted in the army. A bunch of women had to go and take up their jobs and produce army material. And then, in the early 1960s, newspapers actually had different help wanted ads for male and female workers. They were not separate. And it wasn't until the passage of the Equal Pay Act on June 10th that it became illegal to pay women lower rates for the same job, strictly on the basis of their sex.
The Greater Grossman Development Corporation is a nonprofit organization in Chicago, Illinois that is fighting against the racial and gender wealth gap. Their mission is to foster and promote the community by designing and implementing programs that improve the community's economic viability, increase availability of quality housing to people of different income levels, while maintaining and improving existing affordable housing, and enhancing delivery of social services, particularly to senior citizens. Also, they're fighting for equal pay for all genders, and they're fighting for equal pay for all races.
African Americans systematically have less wealth than whites. Tables 1 and 2 summarize several wealth measures by race, including median wealth, average wealth, and the share of households with no or negative wealth. The median black wealth in 2016 amounted to $13,000, less than 10% of the $142,000 median of white wealth. The average black wealth was 11% that of whites, and slightly more than 1/4 of blacks had no or negative wealth, compared with only a little more than 10% of whites, like you can see in Table 2. The black-white wealth gap has persisted for decades. As shown in Table 1, the median wealth for black non-retirees over the age of 25 has never amounted to more than 19% of the median wealth of similarly situated whites since 1989. Additionally, the ratio of average black wealth to average white wealth never exceeded 21.6% in 1992. Roughly speaking, the best case scenario for the past 30 years occurred when blacks had about 1/6 the median wealth of whites in 1998. But in the wake of the Great Recession, which lasted from 2007 through 2009, America has seen its black-white wealth gap increase sharply and move even farther away from the best case scenario. In 2016, median black wealth stood at $13,000, about half of the median black wealth recorded just before the Great Recession, as you can see in Table 1. At the same time, median white wealth was only 1/4 less than it was prior to the Great Recession, declining from $188,000 to $142,000. The average black wealth in 2016 was still about 1/3 less than it was before the start of the Great Recession, $102,000 compared with $154,000. Over the same period, average white wealth grew about 15%, from $815,000 in 2007 to $935,000 in 2016. The Great Recession did greater damage to black wealth than it did to white wealth, widening the racial wealth gap even further over the past decade.
Okay, so you might ask yourself, how does this imbalance in wealth affect the rest of us? And firstly, the biggest negative of this is, the divide it causes between races. One race clearly staying on top of another in a wealth aspect. It causes anger and a division. And this is bad because while we're trying to progress as a society to be more racially inclusive, this is one thing that's holding us back and has been for many years. Also, there's the clear obvious signs that, in many minority neighborhoods, they deprive compared to many, white neighborhoods. And this affects us because when everyone benefits, it makes the country better.